What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Buffalo Commander. I am your host, Alex. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment if you'd like. I will comment back. Today, we're going to go over the 2024 NFL Draft Scouting Combine. I'm going to give you some of my watch list players for the week that would maybe be good fits for the Buffalo Bills and the Washington Commanders. Mainly with the Bills, we're looking at wide receiver, safety, and defensive line. With the Commanders, we're talking about quarterback, but the quarterbacks that they want aren't testing. So we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to get into maybe some of the other quarterbacks that could improve their stock over the course of the combine today. So I want to go in player by player. What I'll start with is the Buffalo Bills and some of their targets, because we have more potential for this, given the fact that Washington's basically just looking at quarterback in the first round. So my first player to watch is Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman has really poor advanced metrics as it relates to separation. So what we're looking for from him is good agility drills, namely the 20-yard shuttle and the three cone, and then also testing his long speed. Because what could be happening with him and his separation issues, it could be just a quarterback problem where he's getting a lot of underthrown balls. That could lead to it. It could have been an injury issue. He was way better in the first 7 or 8 weeks as he was to the last 4 or 5. So it could be anything. However, this is why the combine is important. We could see and test the athlete and see if maybe the athleticism is there to improve upon a weakness. So if he does have a separation issue, but he has great lateral agility and pretty good long speed, most likely you can teach that kind of athlete how to be a better route runner. Great example, Gabe Davis. He was in like the 1 percentile for the three cone and like the 30th for the 20-yard shuttle, or either vice versa. So a guy with bad agility like that, he's probably never going to be an elusive, nuanced route runner. So at the end of the day, we want to test that to see if Keon Coleman can do those things. So I think that the combine may be bigger for him than maybe anyone else in the wide receiver draft, any other wide receiver in the draft. So what we could be seeing here is a guy either having his stock go through the roof or stock drop really far. So that's my first player. My second group of players is Tez Walker, Troy Franklin, and Xavier Worthy. So they all have similar issues. Tez Walker weighed at 200 pounds at the Senior Bowl. Sounds kind of crazy. He looked really skinny. I don't know if he just gained a bunch of bad weight in order to weigh in heavier there, because the scouts are watching, and maybe he didn't actually gain any muscle. He did look a little slow of foot compared to his tape at the Senior Bowl, and also he looks stiff. So what we want to validate is his long speed and in the weight to see if it checks out, right? With all these guys, actually. So what we want to see is if he gains weight, does he still maintain the same speed? And that's what the 40 will check in some respects. The other problem, the other thing I want to see with Tez is if he has lateral agility issues. He looks stiff and clunky when he runs routes. On tape, it doesn't look as bad, but at the Senior Bowl, it looked pretty bad. So we'll see if that's the case. Troy Franklin and Xavier Worthy. I mean, Xavier Worthy is a really good route runner, and I was low on him at first, but I've changed my mind. As long as he weighs in heavier, I don't like the idea if he weighs 160. But if he's more like 175 to 180, and he's probably not going to be 6'1" like he's listed, maybe 5'11", I'd be okay with that because I think he's a really good route runner, and he definitely has speed. Him and Franklin are both mid 4.3 guys, maybe even low 4.3s for Xavier Worthy. But I do want to test his weight to see where it's at. Same thing with Franklin. I want to see if he's not quite as good of a route runner as Xavier Worthy is. But that's mainly just the release package stuff, in my opinion. Everything else about his routes, in my opinion, like the stem and everything else, like he seems pretty nuanced. Outside of the fact that he's not going to run some of your routes that are like fade routes and stuff that is going to require a jump ball or anything like that. He's not going to beat people to catch point like that. Where Xavier Worthy is actually better at that, even though he's a little shorter and smaller. I think both are going to measure in shorter than they're projected from their the program at their schools. One's measured at 6'3", 187. I think Franklin's probably going to be 6'1.5", 6'2". And then you're probably looking at Worthy, who's 6'1" on the program. He's probably more like 5'11" to 6 foot. So as long as both weigh in something respectable, I'd be okay with it. If Franklin weighs in at 187, I'd actually be surprised, and I think that would help him. The problem is I think he's going to be more like 175. Same thing with Worthy. He's 172 on the program at his school. I'm worried he's 160. So if both of those guys weigh close to 180 or above, they're probably going to improve their stock or at least stay pat with it, because both of those guys are early second round picks, in my opinion. Tez Walker's probably fallen after the Senior Bowl, more like a third round pick, mid to late third round pick, in my honest opinion. So next is Xavier Legette. This is an interesting one. He is a monster. He's 230 pounds and 6'1". He's built like AJ Brown. When he went to the Senior Bowl, he had really small hands. I know people think that's silly, but scouts care about that kind of thing. It tells them, it tells them like how likely they're going to catch the ball. It's a bigger radius for your hand for the ball to hit when you have your hands, bigger hands. So they don't typically like guys with small hands. Even if we look past that, we're looking at a guy who is super raw. He didn't peak till year 5. That's a long time. He didn't do almost anything for 4 years. I know he had a tragic issue with his family, things like that, but there's no reason a guy with his physical skills can't get get a decent role on a mediocre team for 5 years. So he's a little bit older of a prospect. He just turned 23, which isn't crazy, but it's still a little bit older. Guys who peak late don't often do that well. So what we're going to look for with him is some of the problems that a lot of bigger receivers have, and that's their ability to run quick, precise routes. And if his feet look pretty good on tape, but he does round off his routes a lot. I think he can probably do it. He did improve from day 1 to day 2 at the Senior Bowl. But I definitely want to see that he can do it. So the position drills for him are actually going to maybe be more important than it is for some of these other guys, to show that he belongs in this group, because he went to the Senior Bowl and he didn't perform all that well. And even with his physical freakish size and strength, he just didn't look that good. The other thing is, these guys, when they're in college, don't play against high-end corners every week. They play against 19-year-old kids sometimes. He's 23 years old, and at that size, he's bodying people down the field. So, I do wonder if maybe that was some of his production comes from that kind of thing, versus when he went to the Senior Bowl and played other high-end guys who are going to be first, second, third, fourth, fifth round picks. He struggled, and maybe it just wasn't. He's just not that kind of player. Maybe he's a guy who's too much of a project to project, and maybe he ends up being like a Cordarrelle Patterson or something. I don't know, but that's kind of my thought process with it. Also, with bigger receivers, they tend to look faster on tape when they're fast. So, like Laviska Shenault was a good example. He ran like mid 4.5s, but on tape in college, he looked like nobody could catch him. So, I want to see the 40 and the agility drills for if his route running could translate, or at least improve, right? If his agility drills, just like with Keon Coleman, aren't good, then maybe the upside for his route running is low. So I do want to see how fast he actually runs, although I do think he's faster than Laviska Shenault based on what the eye test tells me. I do want to validate that with the 40 itself. So he's another one can improve or kill his stock this week. He runs a 4.6 and does poorly in the position, he could fall all the way to the 5th round. If he just kills it and looks like the best receiver in the field and tests out out of the gym, he could be a high 2nd round or even a late 1st round pick. Next one's Kam Kinchens, another guy at the Senior Bowl that looks stiff. He had a really hard time in coverage during the Senior Bowl week. And what I want to see from him is also his agility. Like with route running, being a guy who can mirror someone and play in the slot, or even at the safety position when you're coming up, you want to have good agility to be able to do so. The difference between safety and corner a lot of times is the agility and the size, but I want to see if he has that kind of baseline level of agility and that he's not so stiff, and maybe he was nervous, or maybe he just got caught on a couple plays in mobile. But, I want to see it to make sure that the upside's there to translate. And this is why I think that the combine is ultimately a pretty important event. So I do want to see that from him. So with Bullock from USC, my main concern with him is size. Like, he's another guy that needs to weigh in. He's listed at like 175. I wonder if he's even 160. He looks really thin. If he weighs in at 175, I think that's a win. But 175, 180 would be like ideal. Not ideal, but it would hit the like minimum threshold almost. If he hit 190, it'd be great, but he's not going to weigh in that heavy. He's really thin. He looks like Devontae Smith playing safety. I love his tape. I think some people are too low on his tape. This guy attacks the football. He's a ball hawk. I really like him in coverage. It's just, can he hold up at the safety position? Can he come up into the box? Can he play in the slot when he needs to? If he has to play nickel back, can he be interchangeable? Buffalo's defense really interchanges their safeties a lot. So in order for them to take a look at you, they're going to have to see that you can potentially play at both. Even if you're not great as a box safety, they want to see that you can just kind of fill if you need to. So that's kind of what I would be looking for him. And next is T'Vondre Sweat. If he weighs in over 340 pounds, he's going to have issues. He's going to drop to the third, maybe the fourth round. He's listed, the rumor is he weighs 360 plus. So he did not weigh at the Senior Bowl. So that's a red flag already. So we'll see if he has if that second number is a 2 or a 3, he's probably okay. As long as it's not like 339, right? If it's 331 or 325 or whatever it may be, that's going to be a plus. So if he does that, he might be an early or a mid second round pick. So I think that's going to be huge from him ultimately. And just I want to see him in the drills to see how he holds up. If he's that big, can he be more than, the question for him is, can he be more than a 2-down defensive tackle or a 1-down defensive? Jordan Davis has the same problems. Jordan Davis was not as big as him, in my opinion. And Jordan Davis was a better player, and he's having big time issues in Philadelphia. So I wonder if that's the case with T'Vondre, who's maybe just as powerful but less skilled than Jordan Davis. So we will see when we get to that point. But ultimately, we won't know until he weighs in. I think the biggest thing is just going to be see how much he weighs in. I think that's tomorrow. Lastly, this is this funny little picture. This is JJ McCarthy and Spencer Rattler. Like I said earlier, the Commanders don't have any of their quarterbacks working out. So these two guys actually could have a huge stock increase. JJ McCarthy's already moved up boards. A lot of people have his QB4. I don't think that's set in stone yet because of his size. Let's see what he weighs in at. I think that's going to be important for him, being 6'2" or 3", and will he weigh in at 202? He says he weighs 205 or 207, or that's what he played at. If he weighs in at 210, 215, and he still looks, athletic, and the ball comes out easy, and he runs well, it's not going to be a problem. If he comes in and weighs 195 or 190 or something like that, there's probably going to be an issue. He might fall a little bit. So Rattler outperformed Nix and Penix, in my opinion, at the Senior Bowl, and he played the whole time. He never left. He seemed like, I know some people have problems with his attitude because they've seen the show as a QB1 or whatever. I think he showed at the Senior Bowl he just wants to work, and he's not going to be a Johnny Manziel type. So he's got great arm strength. Both these guys can move. Both of them have good arms. I think with shorts on, they are going to look a lot better than Penix and Nix. Both of them have stronger arms than Nix and probably Penix. And Penix has a weird sloppy release. When they're all on the field together, teams are going to fall in love with one of these guys, but maybe both of these guys. So what we're seeing now is a potential riser situation where Rattler could move up to the late first round. Now, it sounds crazy. People made fun of, I forget who it was. And it was like Stephen A. Smith. No, it wasn't Stephen A. It was like, I don't remember who it was. Anyway, so besides the point, but a lot of people were saying he'd be a late first round pick when the draft cycle started. I was totally out on that. I thought he was a third round, fourth round pick. Now when I'm seeing him going, okay, his tape's probably third or fourth round, but he could end up going back into the first round and somebody could fall in love with the traits. So he has a little bit of Mahomes in him also. And I think that's what teams seem to be interested in now. So anyhow, I just figured I'd share those. The weird thing about the Senior Bowl this week, I mean, not the Senior Bowl, the Combine in Indianapolis this week. Marvin Harrison Jr., Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels, and Malik Neighbors, none of them are doing anything. The good news is everyone's going to do their medicals and also do the interviews except for Marvin Harrison Jr. That's the only one I really have an issue with. For a guy who, I know he's solidified, set in stone. I know we can validate his speed and his movement skills on tape. I know we can do that. But play the game. Like, part of this is like when you work in a job, like, you got to do stuff. You can go on trips and, have conventions and meetings all the time and things that maybe you don't want to do. But I'm disappointed that he's not going to even go and do that. at least do the medical and do some interviews. Like, get to know these teams. Like, they need to get to know you. The medicals, especially on Malik Neighbors, I know he's second receiver on most people's boards. I think I like him in some ways better than Marvin Harrison Jr. I wouldn't be upset if a team, because they interviewed Neighbors, that they would surpass Marvin Harrison Jr. if he interviewed really well and he fits a certain skill set for what the team needs. So I guess my point is with all this is he should be there. I think they all should be there. I'm not saying that any of them should work out or anything. I don't think any of them can really improve their stock. I would love to see Meg versus Daniels and just see how they both threw the ball and see what it looks like. This is one tidbit for Washington fans out there. Jaden Daniels is reportedly like on the what's it called? The program. Okay. So that with the program, he's listed at 210 and 6'4". I don't think he's 6'4". I think he's 6'2". Let's say you might weigh, they do it in 8. So let's say 6'2" and 3/8. That's my guess. So hold me to that. And then 210 is what he's listed. He looks like he's 190 to me. So that's just a guess. So it could be 210. Who knows? It just looks, he has narrow shoulders. He's not a big framed guy. I don't know how much weight he can actually put on. And that's another problem. So even if he is skinny, like how much weight can a guy put in who's got narrow shoulders, a small frame? So we'll see. The way he runs, that's going to be a problem. If he weighs in at 190 or something, 195, teams are going to see that and see that as a red flag. They're going to be like, well, dude, this guy runs with a reckless abandonment sometimes. He runs around like Josh Allen at times. So that's going to be big for him to weigh in. So we'll see. There's no real big thing for Drake or Caleb. I think that everybody just kind of knows. Actually, with Caleb, I want to validate the height, but he looks 6'1" to me. I don't know. We'll see. But I don't think that it really hurts him with his playing style. He's 6 foot, 6.5 inches or something like that. So anyway, that's pretty much my thoughts on it. Everybody enjoy the combine. They go through Saturday and I believe maybe even Sunday. The wide receivers and the quarterbacks, which primarily we talked about, happen on Saturday. That's the best time. That's why they put it on Saturday, because everybody wants to watch the receivers run 40s and the quarterbacks throw passes to the receivers. So, tune in. It's an exciting event. I know some people are kind of less involved with this event. They don't know what's good as far as like testing and stuff goes. I think I might do a video on that sometime, just on like thresholds on what is good and what's not, and what's acceptable based upon your position, your height, and your weight, things like that. So, leave me in the comments if you think that that's something you want to see. But it should be a good time. I'm going to be watching. So anyhow, thanks for joining me today, everybody. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next time.